Hi everybody, Cheryl and Lady coming to you from the Ladies Garden and Home, and today I'm going to take you through my 7 most important tasks I need to accomplish in the month of September. It's mid-September, it's a beautiful day. I hope this helps maybe for you to put together your list. So I hope you join us. Get out of the squash. So the first number one thing I have to do is figure out where I am going to plant all of these brassicas. I started these back in July. Yeah, they're ready to get in the ground. So now it's important for me to figure out where these guys are going to go. I'm going to have to sacrifice something, and I think it's going to be my basil. I have so much basil already preserved and dried, and I have been enjoying it, but I also have a lot more plants, especially up on the deck. So I'm going to pull, see, they're going to flower, and it's been very difficult even just keeping up with them not going to flower. Their leaves are starting to turn a little bit yellow. So I'm going to be pulling the basil, and I'm going to be putting the cabbage here in the center of this bed. By the time the cabbage is bigger, most likely we will have already had a frost, so the peppers will be gone. And I'm also hoping that this close interplanting will kind of confuse the white butterflies. That actually an example of that cabbage moth worm damage is right here. As you can see, they've eaten the leaves clean off. I just planted these yesterday, so I have to put that cloth back on them. I also had a nice little discovery yesterday as I was moving around the containers that used to contain the potatoes that were over here on this side of the bed. I noticed that a lot of the mulch that I had put down had completely decomposed, and there were lovely, lovely worms all underneath there. So I decided to make this a row of different things that I seeded yesterday, including I put my rutabaga here, a row of fennel, and also I put the radishes in here. So that was just yesterday. I'm hoping they'll sprout soon. Another way I'm making what I hope is the most of a very tight situation is I interplanted, direct seeded, some spinach yesterday directly underneath the marigolds. And when they start to come up, I'm going to cut back the marigolds because as you can see, they've gotten quite leggy. They are blooming pretty though, huh? I'm going to have an empty bed this winter. I think I'm going to go ahead and put in cover crops. I did plant some cover crops last year. The point of them is to make sure that the soil's not exposed throughout the harsh winter, but also they provide nutrients back into the soil. And there's bag mixes that you can purchase that have a nice variety of different things. It's just a whole bunch of different kinds of seeds that are supposed to be really good for the soil. So like daikon radishes, winter peas, clover, rye, and then in the spring you just turn all of that back into the soil, and it provides a very nice green compost. So task number 3 that is really important for me to get to is to cut back all of this overgrowth. This is porcelain berry growing up my pine tree here, and I have cut some of it back and it just dies there. I shouldn't have waited so long because it's already starting to form berries, which means that they're going to be seeds. But this is something I really have to take care of soon. Oh, and by the way, that's the butternut squash vine. Ain't that cool? It's just growing up. Speaking of cutting back, it's time to cut back my lavender. As much as I love the way this looks, it is really overshadowing the garden bed beneath it. You really should cut back and prune your lavender after it blooms. Pretty much the blooms are spent at this point, so another task for September. So the next major task that I have for September is keeping up with the watering. It has not been easy. It has been a very, very, very dry summer, which is rare for my area, Southwest Connecticut, by the water. So the fifth thing I need to do in September is harvest, 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 which is not a chore. That is actually the fun part. That's actually why we do this all year. So coming out in the evening with my little harvest basket and bringing in the fruits of the labor is a very exciting thing. And actually that goes for flowers too, to continue to let them bloom and grow, especially the cut and come agains like the zinnias. It's a joy. It's a joy to harvest. Which leads me to chore number 6, preserving. So my favorite ways to preserve my produce, honestly, is freezing, because you just put it in the freezer. But there's also other methods that I like to use, like pickling and fermenting. And the reason I really like to do that, as opposed to getting into canning and all that, is because personally with canning, I would think that you'd need to have like a day dedicated to it, and you'd want to have all of your vegetables ready so that, you know, you're going through the process. But with fermenting and pickling, you can literally just do a pint jar if that's what you have that you've brought in. And, you know, this is not a very big garden. I'm not harvesting pounds and pounds of fresh produce. I might have a couple of cucumbers, I might have a couple of tomatoes, I might have a head of cauliflower. And also drying, I actually did a video on this a couple of weeks ago on how I preserve my herbs, and drying is one of the biggest ways that I do it. So I'll link that after this video. But I also want to mention just serving them fresh. A lot of people forget. They get so into the idea of, you know, putting this up and storing it for later, which is all very important, don't get me wrong. You want to store things for later. But I enjoy my summer produce as well. I had a wonderful garden salad last night with peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, and onions from the garden. So good. So the 7th thing that I have to accomplish in September is planning. Planning is very important this time of year for me, because I'm planning on overwintering some vegetables. So what that means is, if I'm going to dedicate a bed or 2 or 3 to overwintering vegetables, I have to figure out where I'm going to put my spring vegetables next year. So that's kind of fun, getting a head start on what you're going to be planting next year as well. The other thing, planning-wise, that you really need to do this time of year is make sure that you have your garlic. If you're going to plant garlic, garlic is usually planted out around the time of the first frost. So for me, that would be in another 5 weeks or so, around mid to late October. However, garlic's been a little bit difficult to get. So I would suggest, if you haven't already, to go ahead and order your garlic. And sometimes you can order them early, and then they will ship them to you according to your zone when an appropriate time is for you to plant. So that's what I went ahead and did. You know, and worst comes to worst, if you can't find garlic through a seed catalog, don't tell anybody I told you this, but yeah, you can plant organic garlic from the supermarket. The drawback to that is you won't know what kind of garlic you have. And there are 2 kinds of garlics. There's hardneck that store better, and there's softneck that doesn't really store as long as hardneck garlic does. So you won't know, but worst comes to worst, in that scenario, you've got an option. Take away, mosquito. Well, that's what I think the most important things for September are. In October, we have a whole different set of things that we need to do to take care of the garden, get it ready for winter. But for now, enjoy planting, enjoy harvesting, and enjoy getting ready for the... I've got an acrobatic squirrel over there. hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, and I hope you subscribe and hit the alert bell for when new videos become available. And from the Ladies Garden Home, enjoy your gardening journey.